Today we're covering the history of Australia, New Zealand. We were talking about the first people, and we were talking about the Aboriginal people. Who can define what's meant by Aboriginal people? Aboriginal people? Yes, Uta?
Original people who lived in Australia.
Yes, the original or the first people who lived in Australia. Okay. Then we said that these people came and we knew a lot about life there from their fossil evidence. Who can tell me what was life before or at the beginning when the first people were there? Mihet?
The Earth's surface water was frozen, and the sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than today. And
Yes.
areas that underneath the ocean were exposed above the surface of the water.
Yes. So the first people in Australia, which were known as the Aboriginal people, they generally lived as, who can tell me what was their economic activity? Hannah Yasser?
They were hunter and gatherers.
Yes, they were hunters and gatherers. Huh? They survived by, Hannah?
They survived by gathering fruit, roots, and other plants for food, and by hunting animals for food as well, and for um, clothes. And they developed weapons from wooden sticks called a boomerang. The hunter threw it through the L-shaped boomerang to catch their prey, and if the boomerang missed, it would come right back.
Thank you. So this was
Thank you.
their life was about gathering, hunting, and the boomerang was their developed weapon, which they used in order to hunt animals. Then started the early settlements. Some of the hunters or gatherers were moving from one place to another. Why? And then how did they settle down? Adam Sadat?
They from one place to another because they were nomadic and they
Yes.
wanted to follow animals or search for water.
Yes. They wanted
And they
to.
wanted practice farming.
So they are at the end
So
they
maybe
have settled.
what again, you miss?
At the end they settled down as farmers, and they were had only only domesticated animals. What was the most important animal they had?
Yes. Answer this.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Dingoes.
Hmm.
Dingoes. They were a species of duck that were first brought from Asia 4,000 years ago, and they still exist today, roaming in the wildlife region of Australia.
Thank you, Adham. Then other Aboriginal people settled in one location as farmers, but others settled down in the rainforests. But at the end, they were tolerated with the harsh and dry lands of the outback, and they get used to it and start farming the land. What about the Aboriginal culture? Who can elaborate about the Aboriginal culture and languages and beliefs? Hannah Hani?
Yes, miss. The Aboriginal people had different languages because they were separated into tribes,
Mhm.
but they had the same culture and religion.
Yes. So they had like.
They also believed in earth creation, and they made songs and poetry on it.
Yes, thank you. They were believing in three main beliefs or three main concepts. Who can tell me what are the three main concepts or beliefs? Let's see, Farah Mahrab. Farah Mahlab,
Yes,
can you tell me
the
about,
concept.
go ahead.
Yes, the concept of dreaming and
Yes.
the creation of Earth
Mhm.
and the music and the dancing.
Yes, music, dancing, and storytelling. Yes, the creation of Earth and the dreaming or the dream time, and also they had the concept or they have a social structures a belief system, which has the music, dance, storytelling, and other art forms that remain important part of their culture. Okay, today we'll be talking about the Morai of New Zealand. So in Australia, there were the Aboriginal people, and in New Zealand, we had the Morai. Who can tell me who are the Morai? How did they came to New Zealand, and what did the historians believe on them? Laura,
Yes, Miss.
tell me.
The first humans to live in New Zealand are called the Maori, and they came to New Zealand later than the
The Aboriginal.
Aboriginal people in Australia. And yes, they came between 800 or 1300 AD, and then they built villages and tribal groups. And then most Maori, they were settled on North Island. And then they fished. They fished plants. I mean, sorry, they fished, and then they gathered plants and they hunted for animals for food. That's it.
Yes, thank you. So the Morai were the first human to arrive to New Zealand. Okay, and the Morai came to the continent after the Aboriginal people, which came to Australia. They were traveling inside using canoes to the islands such as Tahiti to New Zealand. And the Morai built, when they came first, they built villages and tribal groups. So they lived in tribes by chiefs. What did the tribes do? Who can tell me what did the tribes do? Dubulina? When they lived in tribes, how did they communicate with each other? Dubulina.
They lived in tribal groups, which was
And?
led by chiefs,
Mhm.
and they traded and went to war with other Maori tribes.
Yes. Thank you. And they were only located in the North Island. طب they had their way of life had the minimal impact of the environment. Okay, their way of life had minimal impact on the environment. What was their way of life, or how did they impact? How did they impact the environment? Bomika, Bomika, Hana Yasser.
Their way of life, which had minimal impact on the environment, included them fishing, gathering plants, and hunting for wild animals for food. Also, they also preyed on a huge flightless bird called Mao, Mo,
Oh
Mo,
yes.
and it became important part of their diet. They hunted 10 species of the Mo too until it became extinct. Um, and then in time, they introduced food crops such as the taro and the yams. Also, boating and diving were became important to parts of the Maori life. As they were introduced to the boating and diving life, they became familiar with the canoes. They carved them from trunks of massive trees that were used to for transportation and also for vehicles for warfare.
Thank you, Hannah, very much. So this was basically the Morai life, which had the minimal impact on the environment because they have make use of the environment around them in order to live. They have fished, they gather plants, they hunted wild animals for food. So as for their food, they fished, they gather plants, and they hunted wild animals. Okay, they had the flightless birds called Mo, which was very easy, became an important part of their diet. So they took this flightless bird as chicken yani for their diet. Eventually, they hunted all 10 species of Mo to extinction. So they have made yani, actually they have used all of it, but also they had introduced to food crops such as the taro and the yams. They have used boating and diving, and canoes which have carved them from the trunks of trees for transportation. So they have made a huge impact on the environment. So again, who can tell me how did the Morai impact the environment? Krish? Krish?
مش ينفع حضرتك تدخلي بوميكا؟
Yes.
Momika? Okay.
Yes.
Krish, can you please tell me how did the Morai impacted or had a minimal impact on the environment?
Yeah, okay. When Moran came to New Zealand, people were also coming from Australia. When Murray started to build the villages. Mister, can you repeat the question?
I'm talking about the minimal impact on the environment, the way of life.
Ah,
had-
okay.
Okay,
They started to fish and gather plants, and they
yes.
also hunted animals for food.
Okay,
And they
this is
also
one
later
way.
on they had,
Mm,
and they also later on had the huge fights by fight. I mean, they also had huge fightless birds called the moa.
mhm,
It was a very easy prey.
yes. And also they have a curved canoes from
Cursed from the trunks of massive trees.
which they have used for transportation. Thank you very much. Okay.
Well,
Then we're going to be talking about the Morai culture. Who can tell me what were their beliefs? How was their belief system? Uta?
Um, Sadie,
Yes, Yabamika?
I'm sorry I had internet problems. I was speaking, but you cannot hear me, I think.
It's okay. Follow up and I will ask you again. Uta, can you tell me about their culture and their belief
Yes.
system? What their were main concept in life?
Uh, their main concept that all life in the universe is connected. The main culture is the Tikanaja. Tikanaja are traditional Morai customs and tradition passed down through generations.
And
That are
Sally,
things that are true and which begin with creation at dawn of time.
Yes. Who's talking? Thank you, Ahmed. Who's talking, guys?
Miss Sally, I'm telling you, I'm sorry I entered late, but my network was very slow. I'm sorry
Farah,
that I
right?
entered late. Yes, me, Farah Hashim.
Yes, no problem, ya Farah. So again, the Morai have like a spiritual belief system based on the concept of all life in the universe is connected. So this was their main belief system. At the heart of the Morai culture, the Titanga are traditional Morai customs and traditions which pass down through generations. What does the Morai tradition say? What does the Morai tradition say, Bomika?
Yes. That all life in the universe is connected.
Hmm?
This is what they say. That everything is connected and
Everything is connected, and according to the Titanga,
the manga that the traditions are passed down from generation to generation.
yes, and the past is always in front of individuals to teach us, and the future is
Teach
behind and the unknown. So, what was their point of view of the past and the future? Again, ya Bomika, repeat.
that everything is connected, and according to the Tanga system, things are passed down from generation to generation, and that the future is behind each individual, and it is hidden and unknown.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to then. They have talked about the future and about things that are true, and that the future is behind individual, hidden, unknown. Okay, Titanga is part of everyday Murai life. From how did this impact their life? Hanahani, how did the Titanga impacted their way of life and their social customs?
Can you ask the question again?
Tidanga is part of their daily life. How did it affect their daily life and their social customs?
Okay. Um, one second.
I'm waiting.
They built homes and prepared food, medicine for the social custom, and they made arts such as the kapahaka.
Yes, which is a traditional Murai art.
Yes, from dancing and music and singing.
Okay, so as for the Murai life in general, from building homes and preparing food and medicine and social customs and art such as the Kabahaga, which is traditional Murai art from combining music, dance, singing, and facial expressions. So it was part of their own life. As you can see here in the pictures, they are using the canoes, which has curved from the tree's trunks, which they have used it in trade and transportation. Okay. One of the most important part of their culture was their language. Who can tell me what about their language? Who can elaborate about their language? Farah Hashim, can you help us?
Yes, miss. Yes, miss.
Can you tell me about their language? Which is a very important part of their life. Can you tell me about their life? Their language, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, I can speak about their language.
Go ahead.
Their language is called the Maori language, and it became so rare, and it was in danger, and also there were leaders that taught them the Maori language.
Okay, so at the beginning they were speaking the Maori language, which has different dialects. But when exactly they started to to speak in English?
When New Zealand was colonized.
Yes, when New Zealand was colonized or by the British, they have started to speak in English. That's why the Maori language was endangered language, and they needed actually to work on it in order not to lose it. So again, one of the most important aspects of their culture was, of course, their language. Of course, they were speaking one language, but they were speaking one language with more than one dialect. Okay, and over time, fewer and fewer people speak the traditional Maori language, but even in if their home, so it was in danger of dying down, dying out. Sorry. Of course, the Maori leaders have tried a lot in order to weaken the language, which is a brink of extinction. But during the year of 17 and 70 and 80, it was reborn again. It has a recovery again in schools across New Zealand, which we have taught the smaller generation to speak this language, and it became the official language of New Zealand. But of course, they also speak English because of when the British started to or colonized from the British, it was also another part of their life. Okay, there is another part of their culture, which is the practice of facial tattooing. Who can tell me about the tattoos? Laura?
Yes, miss. So the unique culture is the facial tattoos, and it's permanent decorations in the body, and they were made by cutting the signs and then rubbing it back in the cuts, and then what else? Oh yes, boys were tattooed during their puberty, and each tattoo was rare and unique. And yes, that's it. That's what I have to say.
And the tattoo was part of their being, as if they are drawing their passage in life from being a boy into manhood. Okay, it was unique. It was showing their ancestry, studies in the tribe, military rank, profession, family relationship. It was showing a lot of their details in their life, and it is still practiced till today in New Zealand as an expression of culture, pride, and identity. Okay, there are other Maori art forms. What are they? What other arts? Okay, Ritesh.
Painting, wood carving, weaving.
Okay, yes, it's also painting, weaving, and wood carving. So they have different aspects of life. They were very successful till came the colonial times. Okay, I want you to read about how it was colonized. I wanted to read about how did Europeans arrived, British Australia, and every single detail about this because we'll be covering this part tomorrow, inshallah, till the challenging and the conflict. All of it, inshallah, will be covered tomorrow. Okay. So again, today we're talking about the Maori life, their culture, their language, and everything. Anyone want to ask any question about them, or I start me asking question? Anyone want to ask a question about it?
Miss, can you summarize the Maori culture?
I'm gonna summarize it from the beginning.
Okay.
So we have started that the Maori culture was in New Zealand. Okay. The first people who lived there, or these were the first people who lived in New Zealand was the Maori. Okay, they came to New Zealand much later than the Aboriginal people who came to Australia. So first the Aboriginal people came to Australia, then came the Maori to New Zealand. Okay, they believed that they start traveling in canoes from Polynesian and islands as Tahiti to New Zealand. So they came to New Zealand using canoes. The Maori built villages and lived in tribal groups. So when they came, they lived in tribes led by chiefs, tribe chiefs, and they have traded together and went to war together. And they have built settlements on the North Island together. So they came in canoes, lived in tribes, built villages together, went to war together, and they were located mainly on the North Island. How was their way of life? Their way of life actually was known as a minimal impact of the environment. They were using every single detail in the environment. They have fished, gathered plants, and hunted for food. They have used the flightless birds, which is called the moo, which was very easy prey because they weren't flying. And they have used all 10 species of them for food. Okay, they have known or were introduced to food crops such as the taro and the yams. They have used boats or canoes, which have made them from carving the trunks of trees for transportation and trade. So they have made use of all the environment. Let's move to the culture. The Morai actually had a spiritual belief system. They had a very, or the Maori have a very important belief system. They believed in something called the tikanga. The tikanga means that everything in the universe is connected. So they were using the tikangas, which has passed it down from one generation to another generation. This says tika means things that are true. Tika means things that are true. So they are saying, according to Tenga, that the past is in front of us, the future is behind us. Past in front of us to guide us and to teach us. The future is behind us in order we can change it easily. Okay. Then they said that the tikanga was part of every Morai life because they have used it while they were building homes, preparing food, medicine, social customs such as arts, combining music, dance, and singing. So, how was it part of their life? They were using this by learning from their past and applying this to their future. Okay. Also, one of the most important aspects was the language. They were spoken the Maori language in New Zealand, but with 400 different dialects, but still speaking the same language. They were speaking this language till New England came and colonized New Zealand. They started to speak in English, but their language was still there. And when they find out that the language is about to die or about to extinct, they have made a program in order to get the language back from extinction, and they have used the language to be reborn or recovery by teaching the language in schools. And now it became the official language of New Zealand. So they are speaking Maori language and also speaking English. Okay. And also they have part of their culture, which is very important, is the tattoos. They are all tattoos, especially the Maori boys. The tattoos will represent their life, their rank in life, their profession, their family relationship, their culture, pride, and identity. And it is still there till today. It's present in their culture. Okay. Anyone want to ask any question? I've summarized all the part. Anyone wants to ask any question? Okay, guys, this is the end for today. Please read the rest of the lesson for tomorrow's session, inshallah. Anyone want to ask more question, guys? Okay, see you tomorrow.
No, thank you.
See you tomorrow, inshallah. Bye.